And we are now live.
All right, thank you very much, Simon. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the January 28th, 2021 meeting of the Community Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee. I will be your host for the next couple of hours, Lisa Blackburn, and we're going to go around the ring here and make sure that all of our committee members are able to see and hear the proceedings. We do have one regret received this morning from Councillor Pam Lovelace, but we'll just go around and start with Councillor Sam Austin, our Vice Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am here and accounted for around the ring. I feel like around the ring I should be shouting, let's get ready to rumble or something. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Trish Purdy, are you with us?
I sure am. Good morning, everyone. Nice to be here. Looking forward to our meeting today.
Excellent. Thank you. Councillor Lindell Smith.
I'm here and always ready to rumble.
Perfect. Councillor Patty Cuddle. Councillor Cuddle, are you with us?
Sorry, Councillor Cuddle, I believe you might be muted.
No, sorry. I got blocked by other pages. I am here. I'm accounted for. Beautiful picture of Westover in the background, representing District 11, and happy to be here this morning.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And I understand we have a special guest joining us this morning, Councillor Paul Russell. Are you with us?
I am. Good morning from wonderful Lower Sackville. Not as sunny as it was for the council meeting, but I'm looking forward to this meeting anyway. Excellent.
Well, thank you for joining us today. So we do have quorum, so we are good to go, and we are going to start the meeting with the approval of the minutes from the December 9th, 2020 meeting. Looking for somebody to put forward those minutes for approval.
I will.
All right, that was
Trish.
Trish, all right, and seconded by Lindell. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carried. Moving on to number 3, the approval of order of business and approval of additions and deletions. Mr. Clerk, do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda today?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have no requested additions or deletions at this time.
All right, beautiful. So then I will need someone to move the order of business as presented.
I will move that.
All right, moved by Councillor Purdy, seconded by?
Councillor Austin.
Seconded by Councillor Austin. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Seeing none. All right, and just a reminder, could we get everyone to, if you're not speaking, to please mute. If you're on the phone, mute looks like *6, just so we can eliminate as much background noise as possible. All right, so moving on to number 4, business arising out of the minutes. We have none. Call for declaration of conflict of interest. Anybody with a conflict of interest to declare? Hearing none, then we will move on to motions of reconsideration. We have none. Motions of rescission, we have none. And considerations of deferred business, we have none. Notice of tabled matters, there is none. Correspondence, petitions, and delegations. 10.1, correspondence. Mr. Clerk, do we have any correspondence for this meeting?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to the committee, we have no additional correspondence at this time other than that which was the presentation request for the 2 presentations today.
All right, excellent. And any petitions from members of the committee? Beautiful. All right, we are moving along. We're moving on to 10.3, presentations. And 10.3.1, we have a presentation from Neptune Theater and updating us on their COVID-19 response. Joining us this morning, I do believe, is Lisa Budgeon, who is the general manager of Neptune Theater. And I do believe artistic director Jeremy Webb is with her as well. Do we have Lisa and Jeremy on the line?
We do.
You do.
Hey, good morning and welcome to CPED.
Good morning, Madam Chair and committee members. We're delighted to be here this morning. Thank you so much for the opportunity to provide us with a chance to tell you what's been happening at Neptune and the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm going to pass it on to Jeremy. Simon, if you wouldn't mind advancing the slide, please.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Hello, everyone. This is Jeremy Webb, Artistic Director of Neptune Theater. Neptune Theater has been in operation since 1963 on the same site on the corner of Argyle Street and Sackville in Jabuktuk, Halifax. This would have been our 58th season of live theater. So for 58 years, Neptune Theater has contributed to the cultural, social, and economic well-being of Halifax and the province. And with a refocused artistic vision, Neptune Theater audiences experience works from Atlantic Canadian and Canadian playwrights, stories that represent the diversity of our communities and region, and accessible programming so more people can experience live theater, and increased opportunities for the growth and development of emerging local artists. All that, and we still produce crowd-pleasing, award-winning entertainment. Since 2017, Neptune Theater has been on a journey of change to better reflect the community it serves. It was apparent and necessary that this theatrical institution needed to open its doors to the theater community and to the broader community. Over the last 3 years, Neptune Theater has embarked on a number of activities and projects that reflect this goal. We created the Rbc Chrysalis Project, a mentorship training for emerging artists now in its 3rd year. We created a new Atlantic Canadian play development program called Incubator. We partnered with the Halifax Fringe Festival, providing performance space to dozens of shows and therefore artists each festival. We partnered with Autism Nova Scotia to present relaxed performances and initiated ASL performances for the deaf community. We enhanced our own open spaces program, seeing our space open to artists in our community who were previously unable to access our facility. As we do this work, our programming, our casting, and our staffing has seen a shift, a move towards diversity and inclusion like never before. Neptune Theater plays a significant role in creating a vibrant downtown core, a vital and engaging creative city, and a progressive and impressive role in the provincial and national arts and culture industry. In our 2018-19 season, that's the last pre-COVID complete year of activity, Neptune welcomed a record 105,000 patrons, presented over 400 performances, engaged more than 320 artists, directors, designers, and theater educators, and posted a 2nd consecutive surplus. Over to you, Lisa, and a slide change too, please.
Thanks, Jeremy. Over the last 3 years, Neptune has worked to become more responsive to the community, more sustainable, and less reliant on government supports. The theatre introduced summer programming, which generated about $400,000 in revenue in 2019. Approximately 50% of the patrons to our summer programming are visitors to the city. We have identified new and alternate sources of revenue: beverage sales, merchandise, theater rentals, advertising revenues from host programs, investment income from our endowment account. All of these account for approximately 16% of our total revenue. The Neptune Theater School, which has been offering theater education for more than 33 years, has seen year-on-year increases since 2018. The theater school now offers programming for over 1,400 students of all ages. We offer scholarships and bursaries to help provide access to students across our community. Our subscription model has changed over time, and the vast majority of our patrons now purchase single tickets. Neptune has been successful in developing strategies to capture these patrons. In accordance with our artistic vision, Neptune has expanded its community engagement and opened the door for more members of our community to explore and experience live theater. In 2019, these efforts combined resulted in a 25% increase in patrons, the highest in Neptune's history. The timing of the pandemic has had a devastating impact on our theater. Each spring, Neptune announces its next season and opens its season-ending musical, which typically generates between 25% and 30% of the theater's annual earned revenue from ticket sales. Between March 13th and May 31st, 2019, Neptune processed more than $1.3 million in ticket sales, subscriptions, and donations. Neptune responded immediately to provincial recommendations on the 13th of March to reduce public gatherings in order to curb the spread of the coronavirus. Over to Jeremy.
The theatre cancelled productions, postponed our season-closing musical Billy Elliot and our annual fundraiser. We suspended our school tour, which would traditionally reach 20,000 students, and 10,000 of those in HRM alone. In schools across the province, they would travel, and subsequently postponed the balance of the 2021 season. On March 13th, 2020, revenue dried up almost overnight. Our industry was one of the first to completely close down, and in all likelihood, will be the last to reopen. Slide change, please.
Neptune is empty and our stages are dark. Our revenue is down 90% year on year. To the end of December, we have lost over $4 million in revenue, and that revenue helps to propel the theatre forward, covering our pre-production costs and enabling us to mount our next production. Our subscriptions are down over 70% year on year. And as an artist-led organization, we're committed to paying our artists fairly for their work. With the closure and the postponements, we've incurred more than $157,000 in contractual obligations to these artists. Our financial partners have been very supportive and have worked with us to defer and renegotiate monthly financial obligations. Neptune is working with their suppliers and partners, many of them are friends and neighbors in HRM, to structure repayment plans for our outstanding payables. We are part of the downtown entertainment district. When we are in production, upwards of 600 people come to the theatre to see a show each and every night. Many go to dinner before and after a performance. We have partnerships with food and beverage operations and other businesses in the downtown core. Neptune and its patrons inject more than $7 million in direct spending into the local economy every year. Simon, slide change, please. Over the last 10 months, management has worked with our board to develop contingency plans and to reposition the theatre to reopen. As this graph illustrates, close to 90% of revenues are tied to productions. Without the ability to produce and present live theatre, Neptune has found it very difficult not only to deliver on its mission and to serve the community, but to maintain operations. Like other organizations, we have applied for and received support from both the province and the federal government. The Canada Employee Wage Subsidy has been instrumental in maintaining a core group of our employees, and that team has mounted a series of fundraisers and other initiatives that's helped to support our ongoing operations. Slide change, please. Over to Jeremy.
The theatre has managed to pivot operations, there's that word pivot that we all love, to maintain connection and engagement with the community, and is now strategizing for its reopening and to get back to production activity in the late summer of 2021. Even though there is a light at the end of this dark tunnel, we fully expect to be operating under necessary and robust restrictions for the health and safety of our employees and our patrons. Throughout 2020, we created and maintained a digital platform called Neptune at Home that keeps our patrons connected and keeps Neptune in their thoughts. This platform also managed to create jobs for artists, technicians, musicians. It was a taste of hope. For example, 51 schools received a special filmed presentation of a seasonal holiday show in December in their classroom. We were able to bring theater to thousands of students, along with study guides, extra activities, interaction, and joy. Since March 2020, we have spent our time planning the unplannable, much like most industries. Multiple scenarios and hundreds of Zoom meetings have been discussed over the past 10 months. With vaccines starting to roll out, and as we hope restrictions ease, Neptune must now plan for its future. We are currently working to see performances again in the late summer and see safely Nova Scotians return to the theatre. Simon, slide change, please.
COVID has had an immediate and unprecedented impact on Neptune Theater. The 58-year-old theater is looking to the future and seeking support to manage the protracted shutdown of its operations. Neptune is taking steps to mitigate the long-term impact of the closure on artists, employees, and patrons. Developing contingency plans and working with the private sector to defer expenses, drive revenue, and preserve capital in order to reopen. Over to Jeremy.
Neptune Theater would like to formally request support from the Halifax Regional Municipality to navigate these unprecedented challenges caused by the global pandemic, and to ensure Neptune Theater and its extensive service to the community remains in place post-pandemic for decades to come. We request a one-time emergency relief of $100,000 in Neptune's 2021 fiscal year, which ends May 31st, 2021. Neptune Theater is a cultural landmark in the HRM, a part of the rich fabric of our community, a cornerstone of the arts and entertainment industry with an impact on so many businesses, organizations, artists, and constituents across the HRM. We're taking a long-term view of this situation and are planning for what looks like a 3 to 5 year recovery period. In this rare and difficult time, we are calling upon Council through your committee to take affirmative action and support all that we stand for and do. Thank you.
Slide change, please. Madam Chair, thank you for taking the time to have us here to present today. We appreciate the committee's attention, and should you wish to invite questions, both Jeremy and I would be happy to answer. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Lisa and Jeremy. So if any members of the committee have questions, just put your name in the chat, and I'll call upon you in order. All right, Councillor Austin, you have a question, sir.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Chair. It's more one of process procedure where we've had an ask before us. I thought when it came to money that these sorts of things, we were directing them to audit and finance at this point.
That might be a question for our clerk.
Actually, Madam Chair, Denise Schofield, Executive Director of Parks and Recreation. I can take that. Councillors is correct that Audit and Finance has the authority over funding. So any request for this would be considered a grant. Any request for that should be directed to Audit and Finance.
So would that be something that we would relay to Audit and Finance, or do our Neptune friends have to go and redo this presentation for Audit and Finance to make that an official request?
Oh,
Denise looks frozen.
I think we may have lost Denise. Oh,
can you hear me?
There you go. You are back. Oh, we heard you there briefly there, Denise.
Yeah, I'm in the office, but I keep getting comments that my internet is weak, which is interesting. Sorry, I'll finish that or start that again in case you missed any of it. So the councillor is quite correct. Audit and Finance does have the authority over funding, and this would be a grant request. So that would be something that Audit and Finance, and in your grant request, so Audit and Finance would have to deliberate on that. So most groups who've been requesting funding, that is what the committee has suggested, is that they present to Audit and Finance. The other process that you have as a committee have also used in the past is you've requested presenters who've come to this committee to submit you a formal letter request, which could then form the basis of a report to Audit and Finance. So you really have two options that you could do there.
I wonder if I may, Ms. Chair, if maybe we should touch base with our Audit and Finance friends and see what the preference of that committee's chair, vice chair is, and then we can go from there, whether that's a letter request or are directing Neptune to present the ask piece to them.
All right, thank you very much.
Just as a thought, right?
Yeah, so let's see, Mr. Clerk, procedurally the best way. Oh, do we have Councillor, is that Councillor Russell?
That would be, thank you very much, as chair of the Audit and Finance Committee. which is quite good timing. So we have the agenda review meeting for Audit and Finance on Monday, and we have our next Audit and Finance Committee meeting on February 11th. I think this presentation would be extremely helpful for the committee to be able to see, and there is certainly time to get it on the agenda. Certainly a letter of request for the grant would be helpful. At this point, that will be a long Audit and Finance Standing Committee meeting, but Neptune Theater is something that is near and dear to my heart. My great-grandfather was Colonel Oland and was one of the founders of the theater. So I would love to see this come forward to the committee.
All right, so perhaps with the clerk's office, we can make arrangements then to have this presentation. Oh, Sam, you had another comment? Sorry, sir.
No problem. This is great that Paul was here to chime in to sort out our procedural wrangling. I just wanted to add, just maybe stepping a little bit onto the audit finance side of things, since any report would eventually come up to council anyway. I mean, what a year we've all had. And certainly Neptune is really important in our community, and we do have established grant programs and involvement in the cultural sector. I think we also, though, have to think carefully about, about where we fit as a municipality in terms of COVID relief, since that has primarily been something that's been directed by the federal and provincial governments. So I think it's probably worth it. It's worth a report. I don't have my own mind made up as to whether or not we should be taking on that role. So I think a presentation on finance and getting a staff lens on it and a report to help us in making that decision would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Austin, and agreed. So procedurally, Mr. Clerk, do we need a motion to that would direct this presentation be heard at Audit and Finance, or is this just this verbal discussion here good enough?
Personally, I think the verbal discussion is good enough because it would it could just as easily have been an independent request to Audit and Finance. So I don't think a motion is necessary. I'll just make a notation in the agenda that there is general desire to forward the presentation on, and we'll make sure that we follow up on that.
All right, so the clerk's office will work with Jeremy and Lisa to get them to Audit and Finance to have this presentation to them as well. I think the more eyes that see this presentation, the better. All right, thank you very much. So moving on to 10.3.2, we have a presentation on the Fair Wage Living Wage Framework. And joining us this morning, we have Melody Hillman, Grant Feltmate, and Karen Slonwhite. I do believe they are all from the Construction Association of Nova Scotia. Do we have those folks on deck? And to unmute yourself, it is star 6. Oh, there you go.
Perfect. Hi, Melody Hillman, present in the meeting. I will start us off if that works for you folks.
All right, perfect. And do you have a slide presentation to go along with this?
Yes, we did send through a slide presentation.
Perfect, yep. And there it is right there. All right, I will turn the floor over to you, Melody. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Madam Chair and standing committee members. Thank you for having us here today. We appreciate you taking the time to hear our industry's perspective this morning. If we could move to slide 2, please. We wanted to start out this presentation by giving you a quick snapshot of our organizations. On the line today, we have myself, Melody Hillman, and Duncan Williams, representing the Construction Association of Nova Scotia. Our organization represents companies throughout Atlantic Canada that build, renovate, and restore non-residential buildings, roads, bridges, and other engineering projects. As well, we have Grant Feltmate representing the Nova Scotia Road Builders Association, who represent member companies comprised of heavy civil, marine, sewer and water contractors and their industry suppliers. And last but not least, we have Karen Swanwhite of the Nova Scotia Home Builders Association, who represents member firms made up of professional builders, renovators, developers, and many other stakeholders in the residential construction industry. If we could move to the next slide, please. So in total, our representation rounds out the entire construction industry here in Nova Scotia, encompassing over 1,200 member companies. Our industry as a whole employs over 36,000 individuals and taxpayers. Next slide, please. To give you an idea of how we landed in front of you today, we wanted to outline the steps that we took prior to this meeting. These steps include meeting with HRM counselors, meeting with the CAO, meeting with HRM procurement staff on multiple occasions, having research sessions with our National Construction Association, and then finally, we were encouraged to come to this group today. Next slide, please. The slide in front of you outlines our high-level concerns with the current approach being taken by HRM. While we understand that to many, it may seem that snow removal and solid waste management may not be considered construction, we assure you that the current accepted format does impact many of our members. As well, we have great concern that there will be scope creep and that this will work its way into other areas, which will provide even more hurdles. So with that, I will quickly go through the list provided here to provide some context. Bullet number 1, lack of consultation with industry groups. While consultations on social procurement did take place with industry, the living wage component was not included. We feel that there was no consultation with industry on this portion of the approved current structure. Our industry aims to provide proactive feedback on proposed changes, and we feel that this opportunity was not given to us on this matter. Bullet number 2, the impact on competitive landscape for those navigating between contract work with HRM and non-HRM contracts. And bullet 3, limitations on small and medium businesses. For a company completing both HRM work and non-HRM work, navigating the complications that will arise from the two separate pay rates will be complicated. There will be substantial burdens from an administrative, staffing, and human resources perspective, and many small businesses, who make up the majority of our membership, will not be appropriately set up to handle these extra burdens placed on them. We feel that HRM is trying to raise up smaller companies, but we feel that this current structure will likely do the opposite and favor larger companies who are better set up to handle these complications. On the next bullet, impact of pay rate for contractor employees at all levels of their companies. This bullet outlines the fact that there will be a domino effect within pay rates. If your junior level employee moves from minimum wage to $21.80 per hour, there needs to be consideration for what that will do to the supervisors that made $20 an hour, who will now need a pay bump, and their manager, and so on and so on. You will be increasing your total cost more than you likely know. The next bullet, reducing the number of contractors willing to bid HRM work. We have concerns that contractors will avoid bidding work that has added complications and added burden. A shortened bidders list means that less competition, potentially higher prices, and not the best value for the tax-paying public. The next bullet, limited scope of research. From what we've heard so far, we feel that the scope of research that's led us here prior to this decision was not sufficient. And then combining impact on HRM budget and impact on the amount of work that can get done, these two items speak for themselves. With a dramatic forced pay hike, HRM will be forced with the decision to have costs increase for the same outcome of planned work, or have less work done for the same budget amount. As contractors and as taxpayers, this is a troubling concept. And then finally, undue expense to taxpayers, which is touched on in a number of the points above. If we could move to the next slide, please. At this point, my colleagues and I would be happy to hear any questions that you may have for us on this topic.
All right, thank you so much, Melody. And so sorry, I forgot Duncan Williams was joining us today as well. So welcome to you, Duncan. Do we have any questions from members of the committee? If so, you can just put your name in the chat and I'll call upon you. All right, I'm not seeing anybody with any questions. Oh, we have Councillor Cuddle. You have a question? Go ahead.
Hi, thank you, Madam Chair. You know, I have heard concerns from small businesses about the complications that this brings, and it does raise concern for me because I think we want to support local businesses, see local businesses bidding on projects, and kind of supporting the growth of our local economy. And I agree that everyone. 100%, I agree that everyone should be able to earn a living wage. But part of my concern about this is that living wage is determined by cost of living, and cost of living is being driven by things like housing and food and transportation. So it's like we're taking from one pot and giving it to another. And I don't know what the outcome of this will be on our small businesses, but I just want to say that I do hear your concerns, and I think they're very worth noting and taking into consideration as we look forward to how we promote a living wage, but also look at how we deal with increasing cost of living, particularly around housing and food security. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cuddle. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation as well. And so just following up on some of the comments, and I have some questions as well to understand. So mentioning this will add added burden to smaller businesses and potentially larger businesses when bidding. Can you again help understand what is the concern when doing this and the added burden that this will create from your members' perspective, and also looking at the concerns that were mentioned. I don't see anywhere the concern of the reason why we've asked for this is the fact that there are people who are not making wages, and there is aspects of businesses who are not thinking about the social impact of who they're hiring and where they're hiring and the work that they're doing. So it seems to me, and maybe this is the case, it seems to me that what's being most focused on are the things that are wrong with this policy, but not the things that are wrong with the industry. So, I'm just wondering if there's any comments of for example, some of the data that shows that people of color, African Nova Scotian, who have trades, who have certified tickets, who are Red Seal, are 30% less likely to get positions. This is in 2017, so that number could be higher or lower. Less likely to get trade jobs to their white counterparts. So, this policy isn't just about making life more difficult for the construction industry. It's also about making life less difficult for individuals who are part of it. So I just need to get a little bit understanding of, do you not see there's value in having these type of policies exist? And also just more detail in when you say this creates hardship in bidding, just trying to understand that as well. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Councillor Smith. Melody, or do you have an answer for the councillor?
I do. I'll start off, but then I will welcome my colleagues to pitch in. And I will start off from the perspective of the Construction Association, just speaking to the labor force questions that Councillor Smith brought up. I can tell you that in our recently launched strategic plan, this is the #1 element that we are looking at around workforce development and our labor force, tackling some of these issues. So I certainly would definitely highlight for the group that this is something that we are aware of and working as an industry association to improve upon. This is our #1 go-to, and we would love to have folks from the city involved in helping us as we shape that over the next 3 years. It is a huge element for us to have diversity within our industry, but also to recognize the fact that we are facing a pretty dramatic labor shortage, and that's not going to get any better unless we make some significant changes. So there are a lot of things going on behind the scenes that will play into that. And on the administrative burden, I will open the floor up to my colleagues to pitch in, just because I feel like I've done most of the talking and I want to share the opportunity. So Grant or Karen?
All right, and *6 to unmute your phone.
Hi there, it's Duncan. Can you guys hear me okay?
Can indeed. Yes, welcome, Duncan.
I didn't want to cut off Karen or Grant there. I guess to build on what Melody said, absolutely 100%. We're focused on workforce development. And in fact, it's probably one of the biggest challenges we have right now. To Councillor Smith's point, we're struggling to try and connect with a diverse community that we know have people with skills, and we have jobs that need to be filled. So there's a disconnect there. There's no question about that. I think the challenge, what we're talking about here, and Melody really hammered home, is you're creating essentially through this policy a two-tiered wage system. So for a contractor, for example, bidding work in HRM, I'm going to have a certain set of wages. That has a ripple-on effect onto my other work that I do. So if I'm looking, for example, at bidding private work where these wage rates may not be applicable, I may or may not be interested in bidding work in HRM. So I think the potential impact is that you may have less bidders, and we already know statistically HRM is struggling to get bids on projects as it is, and we can look back over 10 years of history and show you that. So there's that factor, and there's also the factor we are in a competitive environment where, you know, frankly, the public sector works are great works, and our industry want to be part of them. There's no question about it. But there's also a very small margin of profit per se in public sector works, and there's usually a lot heavier administrative burden as it is. So when you put those two factors in, and I can compete for work in the corporate world, private sector, and negotiate that work and potentially add more dollars to my bottom line, and I can also turn around and have less administrative burden and do the things I need to do to carry on my business, you know, the choices become relatively easy for me not to bid these public works. And I don't think that's a position any of us want to be in. We want to make sure we have a healthy competition in industry. And I think having a more robust conversation about how do we build diversity and how do we build on what you're trying to achieve, I think that's important on the front end. Right now, what's happened is the living wage has not been part of the consultation whatsoever up to this point. So it's going to be a huge shock on the industry, and I'm just fearful, and I think my colleagues would share what Melody's already hammered home, that this may have a negative impact and not actually get you where you want to be going.
All right, thank you very much, Duncan. Any further follow-up, Councillor Smith? No? All right. Councillor Austin, you have a question, sir?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Chair. And, you know, just kind of looking through the list of concerns in the letter, a lot of them, you know, there seems to be some administration, a lot of it seems to be some administration stuff. You know, maybe there's opportunities to for the association and staff to work on that to make that less of a burden. My main question, because it's not explicitly stated out there, my main question for the Construction Industry Association is, are you opposed to paying workers the living wage, I think it's $21 an hour?
All right.
This is, can you hear me? It's Grant Feltmate with the Road Builders.
Hi, Grant. Yes, go
Hi.
ahead. Did you want to answer Councillor Austin's question?
Sure, I can speak to that, and I'd like to. I was having difficulty with my star 6, so I was having difficulty getting on before. On the 2180, the difficulty as it has been pointed out before by other folks, and you know, we are dealing in Nova Scotia with a minimum wage situation, which is going to go to $12.95 on April 1st, which is the same time that 2180 kicks in for new contracts that come out after that. Obviously, that's a substantial jump, and from our point of view, really minimum wage is interesting, but most of our folks are paid above that anyway. But when you do have that substantial jump that you're forcing the minimum wage for HRM to go from, let's say it's really $15 that we might pay a lower end person, that we're going to go to 2180, that has, you know, a big impact on our costs. It's going to have a big impact on your costs, and that's going to get reflected, as Duncan touched on and Melody touched on. That's going to have a ripple effect right through everything we do, because the people above them are going to want to get paid more. So you are going to jump your costs. To have the 2180 isolated for only HRM and not part of the rest of the population is a really difficult situation for business to deal with, as Duncan has also alluded to. You're going to have pay at that rate for HRM contracts. That same contractor is going to try to pay his folks the regular amount to compete for other work. That's not going to work very well. So again, you'll get back to where people do not want to bid on HRM work. I did want to get back to the basics on the administration end of things. Our history, our belief, our experience has been that whenever you add complexity to a contracting situation, it always favors the big folks. They have the resources, they have the experience, they can manage that stuff. It's very difficult for the small companies to manage that kind of administration. So you are favoring the large companies over the little companies when you go that route. On the diversity side of things, Duncan has touched on it, Melody touched on it. We have a very large demand for labor now and going forward. Very competitive market. We are looking for all the workers we can find. My response to Councillor Smith would be, we agree with you on the concept. We do not agree that living wage is the way to do it. And I think it will probably detract from the ability to get more diversity in than help it. What I suggest to governments at all levels is we should be talking about finding effective ways, programs to get the diverse populations into the workforce. Not, and this I do not think it will work very well. And in fact, there is some research out there that would indicate that if you put a living wage policy in, you actually are hurting the lower wage people, because the contractor then goes, oh, so I had two guys or two folks working at $15 an hour, and now they're both supposed to be paid $21.80. How much of those two people can I keep? Do I have to drop one? Do I have to drop their hours? So it is a slippery slope to go to the living wage factor. It sounds good on paper, but it has lots of negative possibilities. And for diversity, like I say, I think we should be having discussions that are separate, that are saying, how do we get the folks in? What is the best way to move them into the workplace? Because we have the demand, and we're quite happy to have them, but we don't have an easy way, we feel. I know maybe easy is the wrong word, but we don't have a good methodology for getting those folks from where they are to working for us. And we are, I know we are, and I'm sure Kansas as well, and I'm sure Karen, that they are working on strategies to try to get these folks in, because we're looking for workers. So I would just suggest that there's got to be a better way than going at it through the living wage. Anyway, thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Councillor Smith, you had a follow-up?
Just a quick follow-up, because I don't want it to be misinterpreted that what I said earlier. So when I spoke about the living wage and social procurement policy, the living wage is one thing, and we're focusing a lot on the living wage, but I wasn't using the living wage in terms of attracting a diverse workforce. Attracting a diverse workforce has very little to do, as mentioned, with living wage. It has more to do with your corporate responsibilities and how you operate as an organization. And with our policy administrative order, the new administrative order that has social procurement piece in it, it speaks about those aspects of what we're looking for, not just in living wage, but also your responsibility environmentally and socially as a company. So I just want to make sure that it's not being construed that I am saying that living wages, paying living wage creates a diverse workforce. No, it doesn't. It's your policies that encourage that. So I just want to make sure that we're on the same page there. So thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
If I could just add there, to that comment, we agree. we don't have any difficulty with the social procurement part of the policies that are going on. We're there, and we don't have any difficulty with that. It's how you get there that we need to be talking about. And we were focused on living wage today, but Councillor Smith's right. We're quite very much on board with what the social procurement piece is, but how do we do it? That's what we need to talk about.
All right. Thank you very much. Councillor Cuttle, I'm sorry. Did I miss you earlier? Did you have a comment or a question and I missed you?
No, that was it. I spoke.
Oh, okay, perfect. Councillor Purdy.
Okay, I see Sam there too, but I can go ahead if you want me to. This is fascinating. I see both sides. The concerns for and I'm talking about the living wage here. Fascinating, and I'm just thinking of our CFO, Jane Fraser, had said when we were talking about tax and commercial tax, she said that the biggest thing that they try to keep in mind is to do no harm. So with good, excellent intentions, the outcome of that so from what I'm hearing, the impact to small business and the impact to taxpayers, and what we find ourselves in these very extraordinary times of, living in the midst of a pandemic, and how that is impacting lower income earners and our small businesses to medium-sized businesses. I'm just wondering if, with good intentions of, yes, a living wage, so important and necessary, what would the potential harm be? I don't know. I feel like both sides are so important. How do you come to an agreement? So that was just my comment, the do no harm, making sure that eyes wide open and looking down the road to all the potential outcomes of a policy. And I just thought that was really wise advice that Jane Fraser had said. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Councillor Purdy. Councillor Austin, you had another.
Yeah, just to kind of sum up where I was going with it. I mean, when this came to council, I think we went into it absolutely eyes wide open that it would create some pressures beyond just contracting, beyond just the contracting with us, because it's hard to have a workspace in which some people are paid, higher if they're working on an HRM job, and then you're trying to account, and then, well, it's lower over here when you're not working on an HRM job. And as I recall the discussion at council, we were very deliberate in saying, yeah, that's actually using the influence that we have as a large contractor to actually lift people potentially out of poverty type conditions out there. And you know, I'm fine with further discussion with the associations here regarding trying to lessen administrative burdens, trying to streamline those sorts of things. But the fundamental argument, should people continue to be paid salaries that are not enough to live on in this city, I'm just not interested. I thank the groups for participating, and hopefully we can work on the things that we do agree on.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor Austin. Any further questions or comments for our guests?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, hi. I've had a hard time getting myself unmuted. It's Karen from the Home Builders Association. And
hi, Karen. You had a comment.
Yes, I did. I just wanted to reiterate some of the points that all the points actually my colleagues have made, but specifically I wanted to say that the industry is not against social procurement policy. What we are trying to achieve is equity for all employees within the sector. And when you have a two-tiered system, which this could potentially lead us to, that will cause a lot of complications within the sector for employers, which will spread from one employer to another. We're also really concerned that it's starting out with just being, you know, solid waste management and snow removal, but the potential for it to go into other directions is something we're very concerned about. The other thing that I'd like to say is that it really does impact smaller businesses from an administrative point of view. Because if you talk to any small business owner, the thing that they will say that challenges them the most is the administrative component of their business. And so adding extra layers of admin to a small business will prevent them from being able to push in for a tender because it would be just cause too much hardship for them. So I know that the city wants to support local. I did hear that from a number of councillors, particularly Patty Cuddle, and thank you, Patty, for that. But it's important not to lose sight of that because, as my colleagues mentioned, the larger companies are better equipped, but we can't forget the smaller companies and mid-sized companies because we all want to be equitable and fair. And that's the whole idea, I understand, moving towards a living wage. So I think we have to look at all aspects of it and be open to conversation. And it did concern me that we were not consulted as industry about the aspect of the living wage, because we could have had a wholesome conversation about this prior to where we are. So I'd like to say that we are really open for consultation at any time and would like to make ourselves available. So thank you for the opportunity to come forward today.
All right, thank you very much. And yes, and I think you know, staff have heard the message loud and clear that some consultation with the group is in order. So
Madam, can I make a couple of quick comments? Just 3 quick comments.
Just quickly, we have to move on to our next item, but yes, go ahead.
Sure. One, I think we also have to be aware that there has to be contractual enforcement here, and if the mechanisms are even in place to monitor, and if there is non-compliance, how is it going to be addressed and redressed through contractual arrangements? So there are a lot more pieces to this than simply a policy and or a principle. And I think I would ask that council and this committee take a pause, work with industry, and find some solutions that everybody can live with, and we can ultimately get to the same end.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. Seeing no further questions from members of the committee, thank you so much to Melody, Grant, Karen, Duncan. Appreciate your presentation here this morning. and it definitely has raised some questions of consultation that we will keep in mind going forward. So we appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so moving on in our agenda, we have number 11, information items brought forward. There are none. Reports 12.1.1, the Halifax Regional Integrated Tourism Master Plan. And just wondering, do we have a presentation on that?
Yes, yeah. Chair.
I'm sorry, what was that, Denise? I'm sorry, you cut out. We do have one or no?
Yes, Maggie will be starting the presentation.
Oh, perfect. All right, then. Thank you. We'll turn it over to Maggie.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman, Madam Chair. Good morning. My name is Maggie McDonald. I'm the Manager of Regional Recreation Services with Parks and Recreation. We also have Ross Jefferson, who is the President and CEO of Discover Halifax, on the line. I'm going to introduce the municipal involvement in the Halifax Regional Integration Tourism Master Plan and touch on its development. Then Ross will take over and walk through a general overview on the sector, the impact of COVID, and the Tourism Master Plan itself. And then I'll close with a few words on the implementation and next steps and recommendation that is before you. Next slide, please. So a little more than a year ago, Council endorsed the development of what we were calling at that time a regional destination development plan and provided funding support to it. The plan was meant to prioritize investments and efforts related to tourism to increase economic growth. The staff report at the time also identified there would be staff in-kind resources to support the development of the plan. Next slide, please. The project was led by Discover Halifax and oversight provided by its board. The engagement process is summarized both in the report and the plan and included 32 engagement events, more than 300 people attending various sessions, and 250 responses to its survey. And at this point, I'll hand off to Ross with the next slide.
Thank you very much, Maggie, and thank you to members of this committee for the time this morning. Just before I start, I do want to just recognize a couple of individuals on the committee who also have been involved in this project in various ways, starting with Councillor Blackburn, former member of our board of directors. Councillor, it's great to speak with you this morning. I also recognize Councillor Cuddle, who is the newest member of our board of directors, and Denise Schofield is also a director with the organization. A special mention also to Maggie McDonald. Maggie was instrumental and at the forefront of the development of this project and worked in parallel as we moved forward. Well, really appreciate again the time this morning to share with you the findings and the recommendations from the Tourism Master Plan. Before I do that, I will speak about the elephant in the room, and that is COVID. We did start the development of this plan before COVID, and in fact, we were just scheduled to release this plan in March of last year, just as COVID was hitting. I'm going to quote Michelle McKenzie, our project manager, on this. She said, and I believe this to be so true, it was the worst time in the world to launch a plan, but it was the best time in the world to have a plan. And while during those initial stages of lockdown and COVID, our attention focused to the immediate critical risks and the critical issues that we're facing the day, having that plan, and certainly right now during recovery, was wonderful timing for us. So next slide, please. Just quickly, I know the committee is probably well versed on the importance of the tourism economy, but for context, pre-COVID, Every year, HRM will welcome 5.3 million overnight stays in the run of a year, and those individuals will spend about $1.3 billion on a variety of services while they're here visiting in the community. That represents 1 in 27 people in our community is actually an overnight visitor. HRM represents 54% of Nova Scotia tourism revenues, and there are approximately 4,000 businesses in Halifax's visitation economy, employing about 34,000 people. Property taxes estimated to HRM are estimated at $42 million a year, and about $85.3 million in revenue to the province through sales taxes. I will say that tourism up until last year was one of the fastest growing industries in the world, globally and nationally, and we expect that to return. Next slide, please. Obviously, COVID-19 has had a major impact on this industry. It was the first to be hit, it was the hardest hit, and it is expected to be the last to return. I am proud to say, you know, I think the approach of businesses, government, and really the approach here in Nova Scotia was exceptional on its support for protecting our community first and foremost. It was foundational to our plan that we believed that we needed to unfortunately take the brunt of shutting down and the hits of shutting down in the efforts to protect our community. And I think again, many of our industry are proud to have done so. The total impact expected over the 12-month period is a forecasted 85% drop in visitation. That's an estimated loss of around 750 to 850 million in visitor spending in HRM alone. We know that there are heavy job losses in accommodations, food and beverage, tour operators, meetings, conventions, and retail. That is actually estimated to be about a 30% loss. And according to the federal government's numbers for Tourism Nova Scotia, in total, we have, as of December, 16,000 jobs lost in Nova Scotia, and just approximating that for Halifax, it's a little over half we would expect to be in the HRM region. Next slide, please. At the very onset, and in fact, even before COVID was named COVID, our board of directors in the month of February passed a pandemic plan and had prepared us for a little bit of what was to come. But quickly thereafter, we prepared this full three-phase recovery plan and have been working towards this plan with many of our partners ever since really March. The first phase of the plan, labeled as support, was really our efforts in the industry to support the containment measures of the virus. We co-authored and wrote the opening plan to open to safe markets, including the advocacy for the opening bubble. But in doing so, we were strong advocates first and foremost for not opening. We were advocates for protecting our community and putting in measures to protect those in our community from the spread of the virus. During that time, we also recognized the desire and the imperative, quite frankly, for supporting businesses that were being locked down. So our organization transitioned from marketing campaigns abroad to bring people here, to marketing campaigns building awareness of those businesses that were closed but had takeout options for food, that had other storefronts, digital and otherwise, or pick up other ways for businesses to keep our locals aware that they are opening and still safe means of being able to have commerce with them. We also supported, in addition to the hyper-local demand generation, campaigns aimed at boosting community spirit in this very difficult time. As we moved into opening to safe markets, the opening of Nova Scotia for travel, and then opening to the Atlantic bubble, we focused our marketing campaigns on travel during those periods when it was deemed to be safe inside the bubble, rebuilding consumer demand as markets return, and supporting consumers' needs and questions to, very important issues. What is open? What can we do? And our organization contributed to many new campaigns, which quite frankly had the highest conversion rates we've ever seen in our history based on those new itineraries that we had put in place. We continued also to sell our sales cycle in group business for future events and conferences, understanding that many of the conferences, in fact all of the conferences that year, had to be rebooked. We had a very successful rebooking rate, and we continue to work with clients who have been impacted for their major events that were scheduled in Halifax. The third phase is really the transform and reinvent phase, and this is really that idea of building back better. It's been a commonly referred to term now, but really looking at what can we do better in the future as we emerge? How can we build back better? And this is where the Halifax Integrated Tourism Master Plan fits very well. We see opportunities to reimagine our industry, as well as reimagine the core services of our organization as we explore these possibilities. So I'm going to speak now and turn our attention to the specifics of the Integrated Tourism Master Plan, and I'll ask for the next slide, please. So let me start by just explaining what is a tourism master plan. Our organization that currently has a mandate for sales and marketing, the promotion of HRM in our highest return on investment markets, has not had a strong mandate or resources to take a look at all of the other variables within a destination that impacts visitation. So if you consider that the supply chain for our industry, the tourism industry, is perhaps one of the most complicated supply chains that is actually not managed by any particular one individual company. It spans from the first marketing ideas that are presented through various forms, whether it's federal, provincial, municipal marketing agencies, whether it's through the travel trade industry, through to traveling to the destination, through airlines, through taxi companies, bus companies, rail, through to transportation within the community, all the way through to accommodations, experiences, meals, and foods. Everything that a visitor spends on is not organized. Destination management is the ongoing process that engages delivery partners in a strong collaborative network to deliver on a clear future for the future. A clear vision for the future. A tourism master plan is the shared statement of work amongst those partners to work collaboratively towards a shared vision. And I do want to recognize that HRM has been an amazing partner that has been involved in this process through many departments as we've moved along. Again, what we have here is one of the fastest growing industries in the world, notwithstanding last year. We have an opportunity to address the risks associated with growth, to maximize both the economic opportunities as well as, and perhaps more importantly, the opportunities for building a better community along the way. Next slide. In fact, the next slide will be a video, and I hope the audio will work. So we'll advance that slide and see if the audio will work. And I'll say I have a short delay, so you'll have to bear with me as I'm watching a delayed version online. So just confirm that this will start.
Chipuktuk, known also as Halifax, has been home to the Mi'kmaq for generations. We're fortunate to be here, together, in a place we love. The Halifax region stretches 5,500 square kilometers. It includes over 210 communities that are as unique and distinct as the 430,000 people who call it home. Each year, we host an additional 5.3 million overnight stays through tourism. With gorgeous coastal landscapes, abundant parks and natural spaces, delicious food, and more, it's easy to see why so many people love to live here and visit. That's why Discover Halifax is developing a tourism master plan. They know tourism is a growing industry, and Even without a plan, the entire Halifax region will continue to see some of those benefits. But smart communities know the key is to guide tourism growth. Guide it in a way that is manageable and in line with what we want our city and communities to look like, all the time, all year round.
Today we're wrapping up one of our engagement sessions for the development of a tourism master plan for the Halifax Regional Municipality. In previous sessions we've had great town halls, we've had input from the public and the community. The objective of the exercise is to not only build a stronger and healthier tourism economy, but more importantly, to build a better community. We know that we have a wonderful opportunity here in Halifax to continue the growth within the tourism sector and more broadly across the community.
To help develop the plan, Discover Halifax hosted 3 town hall meetings and over 30 public engagement sessions in various regions of the municipality. They also released an online survey that received approximately 250 responses from residents and people working in the tourism industry. This helped ensure everyone got a chance to share ideas and concerns. Ideas like making sure we represent all of our unique cultures, or creating new opportunities to host conferences and events, and concerns like reducing environmental impacts from tourism. There were a lot of great ideas, with people talking about the need to be authentic, vibrant, and sustainable. One main theme continued to come up again and again: create unique experiences that are good for residents, and tourists will want to come and experience them too. Beginning in the fall of 2019, Discover Halifax started creating the plan with their partners, and with support from the Halifax Regional Municipality, Discover Halifax is developing a master plan that will help us reach goals in the municipality's economic growth plan.
We'll know our story and be able to tell our story to the world. That's the key with having any kind of plan, is knowing what our story is, knowing what our value proposition is, and being able to communicate that.
Tourists don't just come to Halifax, they have to be invited and enticed. And so we need to be proactive in how we do that.
Those goals include growing our population to 550,000 and increasing our GDP to 30 billion by 2031. Tourism is well positioned to help with these goals. We know many people first come to Halifax as a visitor before they choose to come here to live, work, or study. Tourism provides fun and rewarding jobs for approximately 34,000 people in the Halifax region. They work at 4,000 small businesses in communities throughout the area and contribute to a healthy economy in addition to providing services to visitors and residents alike. The Tourism Master Plan spans over 5 years. A number of partners will be working together with Discover Halifax to successfully action the goals within the plan. As a sponsor for the plan, Discover Halifax will track the success and areas for improvement. Discover Halifax is excited to implement the Tourism Master Plan. Find out more online. We can't wait to experience authentic Halifax with you.
Thank you, Simon. If we could move to the next slide, please. Thank you, members of the committee. I think there was perhaps a buffering problem, so I'm not sure if you were able to see the entirety of that video, but hopefully you were able to take from some of the audio and some of the video that we did complete extensive consultation and had a very terrific engagement from our public, from our industry, and from those partners that we work closely with. I will say we hired some of the best consultants in the world to do this. We reviewed all of the primary plans today in our community that touch on related tourism, from our economic development strategy to the center plan, the integrated transportation and mobility plan, as well as provincial and federal tourism plans. We really do not see this plan as a distinct and separate, rather an integrated part of the existing planning framework. I will just, again, I really can't say this enough, that we do believe that the goals behind this is really not simply to drive the most economic benefit, which we know will happen naturally in this industry, but trying to shape that to mitigate the risks and plan for a community and use and leverage the tourism industry to develop the industry that we want. We have some key guiding principles that really stand behind that idea. First, guiding principles that we take a community-first approach to the decisions being made in the tourism industry. Yes, we will have economic opportunities and benefits, but having a stronger tourism industry alone is not the objective. We can increase the economic contribution and harm the community if we do not grow in a way that benefits all and benefits the broader community. The second is that we do want to continue to have a competitive lens for our decision making. We do know a lot of projects do come forward in the auspice or under the umbrella of tourism that may or may not actually be tourism. But we want to make sure that the limited resource that all levels of government have in investing goes towards the highest return on investment, both from a financial perspective, but also a community development perspective. We also very much want to support a broader context of growth, not only for Halifax. We have the opportunity to support Nova Scotia and, quite frankly, even Atlantic Canada with the recommendations that we are making. And finally, leveraging the collaboration throughout the tourism ecosystem was paramount. Next slide, please. The final, I will share with you the framework on which the plan has been developed, starting with the vision to be widely recognized as the favorite city in Canada. This was a really a part of the conversation that was widely discussed, that we really wanted to, we weren't trying to be the biggest, we weren't trying to be the best. What we're trying to do is make sure that when somebody in any of our target markets, be that globally or nationally, think of Halifax, or think of Canada rather, they think of Halifax, that this stands out as one of the great cities in our country. We have 4 specific goals that are directly taken from the economic development strategy. So again, not just about tourism, but of course, number 1, growing tourism revenues, which supports the goal of growing our GDP. Support growth in tourism employment, which supports the goal in the economic development plan of growing our employment. Enriching the lives of our residents and aligning with related strategies. The plan outlines 28 specific recommendations under 6 themes, 6 strategic themes. First and foremost, building and enhancing Halifax's key demand generators. Second, making it easy to get here and to visit. Third, developing responsible tourism. Fourth, attracting the highest yield and growth markets. 5, to be vibrant and alive 365, meaning to try and spread not only seasonality, but also through day of week and time of day, so that we're not focusing exclusively on one segment or one niche time period of the year. And then finally, establishing and identifying tourism leadership. I should note that COVID has impacted some of the initiatives, but the foundation of the plan itself couldn't be more relevant today than ever. On the initiatives side, we have seen some initiatives in their timelines being postponed. We've paused the stopover program with WestJet and the airport until that time reassumes, and some of the initiatives relating to cruise have been paused. But many have been expedited, like the completion of the Georges Island project, a tremendous success last year, the completion of phase 1 and now phase 2 of Peggy's Cove. And we recognize staff and HRM and council in advancing the policies of home sharing and ride sharing. The plan helps us with many of our shovel-ready projects for future stimulus projects as well. Next slide, please. We've been working on the collective impact model, where we're trying to find alignment between the many partners that are involved in the development of the tourism industry across 3 levels of government, across the private sector, the public sector, and with the many partners. What we found in the analysis is that in many pockets, we have, in some areas, no planning. We have in many areas planning with coordinated impact, individual impact, and in even some areas, collective impact. We're striving to get everyone towards the collective impact. Next stage, please. In studying the collective impact model, a formal model that's been developed for initiatives like this, there are 5 conditions for success. First, having a common agenda. Second, developing a shared measurement system, and we will be launching a dashboard in the coming weeks. Number 3, designing mutually reinforcing activities. Number 4, having continuous communication between the partners. And number 5, a backbone support organization. Next slide, please. In conclusion, I just wanted to recognize the many partners that have come together, and specifically also mention the departments of HRM, Jacques Dubé, of course, Maggie McDonald, Denise Schofield, and many other partners in the development of this plan. I should mention that the COA, Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency, and the City of Halifax as funding partners, and a special mention to Michelle McKenzie, our project manager on this project. I'm happy to take questions, but at this time I'll turn it over back to Maggie McDonald to talk about the implementation and the recommendation. Next slide and over to Maggie. Thank you.
Thank you, Ross. Just to wrap up, the staff report outlines those strategic initiatives for which the municipality has a lead or primary role and describes the status of each of these items. Next steps on individual items will return to council if or as needed. If council approves the direction, staff would negotiate with Discover Halifax on a new services agreement and would advance discussions with the Hotel Association of Nova Scotia and Discover Halifax on foundational pieces around resourcing, including the marketing levy. Next slide, please. And here you have before you the full recommendation. So as Ross mentioned, we're happy to take any questions from the committee.
All right, thank you very much, Ross and Maggie, appreciate it. Any members of the committee who have questions, just put your name in the chat, and if you could, I'll ask you to put the motion on the floor before you start, so we can just get that on the floor and ready to go. Any members of the committee with questions? Not seeing any in the chat. Do we have any committee members who would like to put the motion on the floor?
Motion on the floor.
Hi there, was that Councillor Cuddle? Yep. All right, so yes, go ahead. You can put the motion on the floor for us, please.
Move that Community Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee recommend that Regional Council 1. Endorse the Halifax Regional Integrated Tourism Master Plan presented by Discover Halifax and the municipality's related responsibilities as noted in the body of the January 11th, 2021 report. 2. Direct the CAO to work with Discover Halifax to provide updates to Council on the Halifax Regional Integrated Tourism Master Plan. And 3, direct the CAO to negotiate a new services agreement with Discover Halifax to reflect an expanded role for Discover Halifax that includes destination development with the scale and scope of activity contingent on funding levels from all sources, including operational funding from HRM, subject to budget approval. 4, request the mayor write to the province of Nova Scotia requesting amendments to the Halifax Regional Municipality Marketing Levy Act to remove the cap on the marketing levy. And 5, direct the CAO to negotiate a memorandum of understanding with the Hotel Association of Nova Scotia in advance of any changes to the marketing levy.
All right, motion is on the floor. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second Councillor Austin.
All right, thank you very much. Councillor Cuddle, anything to add or any questions?
I just want to say how much I really love this strategy, particularly its approach in looking at, you know, kind of community first, and how they've really, you know, sought to understand all the other plans that are happening in the municipality and how tourism can support those things. You know, the idea that if it's good for residents, it's good for tourism is a fantastic kind of founding principle in which to start this work. You know, when I look at particularly our rural areas, I do see that there is a need for investment in rural economic development, and this tourism plan is, I see as a key component to that. And back to the community first approach. Particularly with tourism development, if we don't have a good plan and we're not taking that approach, what we do risk is seeing a lot of the benefits of tourism development, leave the community and leave the province while we get stuck with a number of the issues. So I think it is really important that we do move forward with this, that we do embrace this community first approach, and that we start to engage communities. Now is a good time in understanding what their tourism potential is, their tourism development potential is. So I just want to thank Ross and Maggie for the presentation.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor Cuttle. And I can tell you firsthand, you are really going to enjoy your time on the board at Discover Halifax. I really enjoyed the, well, it was pretty much 4 years, I think, that I was on the board, and loved it. It's a great bunch of folks to work with, so enjoy it. I don't see any further questions in the chat line. Seeing none, I guess I will call for the question.
Question
has been called for. Now, Mr. Clerk, with motions at CPED, do we just do a verbal, or do we go around and do a recorded vote?
No, we can do a general verbal vote. If a member so requests, we can then make a recorded vote, but otherwise we can proceed orally.
Perfect. Oh, I think we do have a question. Councillor Purdy, you have a question before we?
I do. The marketing levy, is that a tax?
Yes, thank you through the chair, Madam Chair, to yourself. Yes, today there is a hotel levy or a hotel tax. It's levied on stays that happen in HRM in properties in size of 20 or greater. It is a provincial enabled piece of legislation that allows specifically for Halifax to create a bylaw which creates this tax. So there is also a HRM bylaw that supports this, and today the provincial legislation caps the hotel levy at 2%. Our organization, by way of contract, receives 60% of the 2%. That supports our organization's funding in the total amount of 75% of our revenues, and we make an additional 15% of revenues on other pay-to-play programs, and a 10% represented by a grant by yourself. The other 40% of the hotel levy goes to support the special events. So at council's discretion, events are funded through council, and they are supported by the 40% of the 2% of that tax.
Okay. Thank you. So what I understand then, to remove the cap means that you'll be able to apply this levy to the smaller rentals like Airbnbs. Is that what that was talking about in the report?
I'll ask, maybe Maggie would be best, and I'm happy to fill in based on that, but I'll let Maggie speak to that report.
All right, Maggie?
Through you, Madam Chair, to the councillor, yes, there would be two components. So one is through the shared accommodation piece to look at changing the definition of in the Marketing Levy Act to allow the levy to be levied on accommodations with fewer than 20 rooms. The other component of the request would be to change the legislation that would permit the municipality to increase the percentage of the levy that's charged on accommodations. So those two pieces are both at play right now.
Okay. So my last question, thank you for this presentation and your report, very interesting. And I mean, we have the best city in the world, I think. So to bring as many people as we can here is amazing. Can the hotel industry bear a removal of a cap at this particular point in time?
I'd be happy to take that question. We have, in fact, the idea or the concept first of increasing this originated from the Hotel Association in a presentation to CPED, I think probably about 4 years ago. Although it is a very challenging time right now for the industry, their support is still steadfast and continued. There is a ongoing discussion and negotiation around the development of that, which I'll leave if Maggie would like to comment on. But we have here in Halifax one of the lowest levies or hotel taxes across the country. It is commonplace around the world, and as many consumers are well aware that many of the services, maps, brochures, guides, planning documents, activities, and events that they experience are funded in part by this. So it is a commonplace around the world. So, but your short answer to the question is yes, the hotels are in support.
Okay, thank you so much.
Madam Chair, if I could add briefly to that.
Sure. Yes, go ahead, Maggie.
Just very quickly, Ross described the two components. One is the provincial legislation that enables the municipality to have a bylaw, but part of the recommendation is that we would not advance a bylaw without having an agreement with the Hotel Association of Nova Scotia in order to ensure that the industry is supportive of such an increase and considers that they're able to bear it.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, thank you. And seeing no further questions, and the question has been called for, so all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? No opposed. Motion is carried. Thank you so much, Ross, for the presentation. Ross, Maggie, very much appreciated, and I miss you guys.
Yes, Councillor, we miss you too. Thank you for your contribution, and we look forward to continuing to work with Councillor Cuddle, who has been a tremendous partner in the past. Thank you to all the members of the committee.
All right, take care. Thank you. Okay, so moving on to 12.2, members of standing committee. We have no reports from them, no reports from Community Design Advisory Committee. 12.4, the Heritage Advisory Committee, there are none. No further motions, none. 14 in camera, 14.1, the approval of the in-camera minutes of December 9th. Is there an appetite for the committee to do this in public?
Yes, I'll move the in-camera minutes.
All right, moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councillor Purdy. Excellent. All those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, so no need to go in camera. 15, added items. We have no added items on the agenda. 16, notices of motion. Any notices of motion from committee members today? All right, hearing none, we move on to 17, public participation. Do we have, Mr. Clerk, do we have anybody signed up for public participation this morning?
Yes, sorry, I believe that may be a typo on my part. At this point, we are not able to accommodate public participation at our standing committees. I'll make sure I indicate none for future agendas while this policy remains in place.
Awesome, thank you so much. So in that case, the date of our next meeting is February the 18th. And seeing that we have come to an end, looking for a motion to adjourn.
Can I make a request on one of the information items now? This would now be the time. Sorry,
did you want to? Did you? That's okay. Did you want to bring one of the information items forward for discussion at next meeting?
I did. The Green Network Plan annual progress report.
Thank you.
All right.
Yep. I can take note of that, and we will bring that forward to the next meeting.
All right.
Sounds good. All right. Thank you very much. So we've moved that information item. We've set the meeting date for February 18th. Looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right. Thank you very much. Motion to adjourn from Councillor Cuttle. Thank you so much, everybody. This is my first CPED meeting, full one in the chair, so I appreciate your patience this morning. Have a great day, everyone, and we will see you all soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.